Hello, my name is Amy Jo Moore, and I am going to discuss the storyboard strategy with you today. As I was researching this strategy, I came across multiple different techniques. However, the overarching theme was always sequencing. Whether the storyboard is used with picture books, chapter books, or video production will determine the technique used. According to 50 Literacy Strategies Step-by-Step written by Gail Tompkins, storyboards are illustrations from a picture book that are cut apart and glued to tagboard. Students sequence events from the story by lining up the cards, and they will visualize the story and its structure in new ways and thoroughly examine the illustrations. They can be used to retell the story and find the beginning, middle, and end. If wondering why should you use storyboards in your teaching, it allows students to manipulate, sequence, and examine the illustrations in a story. It also offers opportunities to teach comprehension when only a few copies of the story are available. It is found to be a useful tool for English language learners to preview the story, sequence the story during the reading, and retell the story afterwards with their limited language capabilities. The Common Core State Standards this strategy addresses are students making connections between the text of a story and its illustrations, describing a character, setting, or event, drawing on specific details in the text, and identifying the theme and other elements of story structure. According to Gail Tompkins, the steps she addresses in her strategy of storyboarding is to collect 2 copies of a book. Paperback copies are preferred since they are less expensive and you will be cutting them apart. Some picture books only have illustrations on right-hand or left-hand pages, so only 1 copy will be needed. Step 2 is to cut the book apart. You're going to remove the cover and separate the pages. It is optional to cut away the text on the page or to leave the text with the illustration. This is up to you. It depends on what your goal is. If you want the students to discover everything on the page and in more depth and examine the text as well, then you'll leave that with it. Step 3 is to attach the pages to a piece of cardboard or tagboard. You're going to glue each page or double page spread to a piece of cardboard or tagboard and make sure all illustrations are included in the process. This is where it comes into play that you'll need 2 books because you want to make sure that all illustrations are included, and if they are back-to-back pictures, you're going to need more than 1 copy. Step 4 is to laminate the cards. This will allow them to withstand the use of student manipulation. The idea behind this is you could pass around the different pictures to different students and have them stand up and organize themselves in the order of events that happened. You could also have students use them in a small group center, for example, by making them magnetic and putting them on the whiteboard or lining them up on the chalkboard. Either way, students are going to be using them a lot, so you want to make sure that they can withstand that manipulation. Step 5 is to use the cards in sequencing activities. These can be used for sequencing, story structure, rereading, and word study activities. You can use them to preview a story before reading by having students put the pictures in order what they think the story is going to be like. You can sequence a set of storyboards after reading to review events. And you can draw storyboards after reading to share understanding. This main point at the end is where maybe your upper grades would use this strategy during chapter books where there are not pictures. They could be listening to the story and creating their storyboard as they listen or after they finish the story to allow you to see if they really comprehended and understood what they were reading. This strategy is also used with ELL learners, and this allows them to communicate with you without using words because everyone is typically able to draw. So this next video that I'm going to show you is of a ELL teacher and how she differentiates the use of storyboards in her classroom.
The last strategy I'm going to introduce you to today is a storyboard. It's a graphic organizer that helps put the content of a story into an organized outline. Graphic organizers reveal organization of concepts and or relationships between those concepts. The learner does not have to process heavy amounts of language in order to understand the concept being taught. Graphic organizers help to make information more precise and eliminates unneeded detail. They also promote analytical, critical, and creative thinking skills for all students regardless of their language proficiency. One of my favorite graphic organizers is a storyboard. I tend to use these often. It's a great way to build some concepts and understanding of the stories being read. A storyboard can be simple or can be more complex. It's also a great tool for differentiating instruction. It can be used for grade levels, and in English and reading skills, you're teaching the students how to recall story events, identifying key events, and working with sequential order. So this would be a simple storyboard, and I would use these for my level 1 English language learner students. It's also great to use with RSP students and any students that are working below grade level. This storyboard here, it's pretty simple because all it is asking the who, what, when, why, where, and how. The boxes are free from lines, so what the students would do here is they would draw their ideas. And then as we progress through the lessons and get more familiar and start building skills, they would begin incorporating words with their drawings. So the graphic organizer my other students would be using is a little bit more complex. And if you notice, there's some more boxes and an area for some dialogue. Having more boxes gives more opportunity to give detail, which my students who are not level 1s or level 2s would probably be able to do a little bit more work with this type of graphic organizer. So to start off with, I would introduce my storyboard to my students with short stories. Most of the stories would be made up in the beginning, so they would be more like about school life and social stories. These stories also help my level 1 students to identify different social settings, which for them it's really important as they're learning to build up their basic interpersonal communication skills. So you want to start off by giving the students a copy of the story or putting it up on the screen so that they can see it. Your job as the teacher would be to read it aloud to the class. This gives the students the task of listening and following along. After you've read this story to the students, then you would give some sentence starters. You're going to put up one sentence starter at a time, and each sentence starter would be asking the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Once they've completed the sentence starters, they would then go to the graphic organizer and begin to fill it out. So my level 1 students would fill out just by drawing. And then my level 2 students would draw and use some simple words or simple phrases. As they progress and start building up more vocabulary skills, they'll start using more of the complete sentences. This is allowing the students to do and to visualize what they're doing. So they're working with all their senses here. So if you notice that before they began recording the information, the students performed higher order thinking skills, such as recognizing important information, making decisions about the information, consolidating details, finding a clear and concise means to relay the information, and again, most importantly, using their senses, which this type of activity meets the learning styles of all the students. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.
Other storyboard techniques that I came across were to use them as pre-writing strategies. An article that I read about titled An Author's Storyboard Technique as a Pre-Writing Strategy by Susan L. Harrington suggested teachers found that many students got carried away, writing page after page with no direction or destination, without an ending or adequate storyline in their disposal. They often ended their stories by promising a new chapter or sequel to explain everything. This strategy will combine students' love of drawing with their storytelling. This allowed them to think about what they were actually going to write about and draw it out and create that sequence of events. The steps listed as the pre-writing strategy were to draw the story idea on the storyboard while thinking through a story, to sketch your story out, think through the goals and solutions to help guide the story, write about known topics, and create stories with twists to captivate readers. This really emphasized the pre-writing strategies, and would be great for upper grades to utilize the storyboard concept. In the article, it stated that a storyboard or the resulting written draft can be revised at any stage. Children often revise their storylines before the drafting even began because they were encouraged to share their storyboards with others, to talk out the stories, thereby thinking through missing pieces and questionable details. Reluctant writers found the storyboard strategy motivational. Here are a couple different samples of graphic organizers that you could use. The one on the left would be something you could use maybe in primary grades. At first you could have them not do the writing and just do the retelling of the story through pictures, or creating their own story through the pictures. On the right side you could use that maybe with your upper elementary grades. And then you could make boxes always smaller and multiple pages of them if you were having them do writing in the secondary grades. Some other resources that I found for storyboards were writing strategies. If you look up Mary Carol Moore on YouTube, you'll find that she would be a great upper elementary or secondary resource. She talks about W storyboards and linear storyboards and really goes into more detail about using different writing techniques through storyboards. Also, toonboom.com is an electronic version of storyboards. As we move more towards technology, the students are very engaged in that, and so to create their own storyboard using that technology would really engage some of your learners. And also telling a story through video production. This was another technique that I came across using storyboards. Typically when they would produce a video, which I know I have my kids do quite frequently. If they read a story and we're going to retell the story using video, they would create the storyboard so that their video would flow. This is a video, and I won't be able to show much of it, but it is of Toy Story storyboarding, and kind of discusses how they come across, and would be a great resource to use with students to just give them ideas and motivate them to want to retell a story in this manner.
How we just create story. We usually start with the written word. I'll write something, and then once I think it's good enough, I ask for see if John likes it and approves it. Yes, great, approved. And he gives it to Joe, as you can see. And then what exactly do you do with it, Joe?
Well, I take the written word and the pictures. And then I take those pictures and I pin them to a board, a storyboard like this. And then after that's done, I pitch it to the directors.
Okay, now why exactly do you pitch them to the director?
Well, I want to give a sense of what this movie could be like. So it's like telling a story to your friends and try to bring it to life and get a feeling of what the story could be like as a final film.
Oh, so it's what it would feel like to be in the theater watching the movie.
Trying to convey that feeling to people.
So what are we going to see now?
Right now you're going to see me pitching the Army Man sequence from the first Toy Story. And by the way, this was the very first sequence ever storyboarded on Toy Story 1.
Yep, it was.
All the toys are worried, so Woody goes over to the Sarge and says, "Sergeant, establish a recon post downstairs. Code red. You know what to do." Sergeant says, "Yes, sir." He hops off and he goes down by the bucket of soldiers. He goes, "You heard him. Code red. Repeat. We are at code red. Recon plan. Charlie, execute. Let's move, 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 move." And all the soldiers start jumping out of the bucket and they start marching. The other toys are watching them. And then we cut to the hallway. All is quiet. And then the door opens and one.
So unfortunately I can't show you the entire video, but you can always look that up on YouTube. It is here listed under Toy Story Storyboarding. Again, that would be a great resource to use with kids to get them inspired, because most of them have seen that movie and will understand the concept of drawing a picture to correlate with the story. I hope you found some of my resources helpful for you, and thank you for listening.